Hey guys, today we're talking about Wizards of the Coast. Now a subsidiary of Hasbro, you may better know them through their flagship brands Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons. They're gaming royalty. But this titan of industry was by no means destined for greatness. In fact, on December 3rd, 1992, Wizards founder Peter Adkison was forced to write a memo to his staff with the subject line, "The severity of our financial situation." Now, everyone knows that if you're going to make a killer return on a stock, it's better to get in early. It's pretty obvious that getting in here is good, and getting in there is great. But what some people forget is that the people who really get wealthy are the ones who get in here. Founders and venture capitalists can do this all the time, but every once in a while, one of the normals like you and me sneak in there too. The best recent example of this is probably David Cho, the Californian street artist who was contracted by Facebook to paint their headquarters in 2004. Despite saying that he thought the idea for the company was ridiculous, he agreed to take stock options in lieu of the $60,000 he had charged for his services.
He's like, "You want the cash or you want some shares?" And I said, "I'll take this. I'll take the shares.
Why?
I like to party. I like to gamble."
Less than a decade later, when Facebook went public, the equity he held was worth over $200 million. And if he still holds some or any of that, it's multiple times what he started with. Back to Wizards of the Coast, though, this was not a company anyone would ever have thought could make its owners rich. They wanted to make games, not software, and in 1992, they were in the process of being sued out of existence. Their initial product was a supplemental guide for fantasy role-playing games, which turned out to be a copyright infringement nightmare. Payroll was missed, and then missed again. That's around the time when Adkison wrote that memo about the company's financial situation. Usually, that's when the founders shut things down, but this crew stuck it out. The main employees found freelance work, and Adkison just kept working 80 hours a week, split between Wizards and his day job at Boeing, which thankfully he had never quit. Suffice it to say, money was tight for Wizards, so when they could use shares for payment, they would, and for literally anything. From early on, Adkison decided that shares in his company were worth 50 cents and proceeded from there. He talks about a friend donating a drafting table to the company, and they figured the table was worth $100, so they gave him 200 shares. Adkison also liked to get his friends and family involved in the company, so he would reward them for little things, almost like a teacher giving out gold stars for students on their papers or something. He states that he might give someone 10 shares if he had a particularly deep or meaningful conversation with them, and he meant it. He swears that every share from all those microtransactions were accounted for. At some point, he eventually decided that the company had been around long enough and they were working on some promising things, so he doubled the value of the shares. Just like that, he said they were 50 cents, now they're $1. He was too honest to base this on any sort of 5-year projection like a company might do these days when they have no real actual revenue or products, and he even admits it. He says, quote, "We did no mathematical analysis of how the stock should be priced. We didn't have the skill to do that. So the stock doubled overnight. That drafting table suddenly was a $200 drafting table." The company still needs money though, and they will take it wherever they can get it. This even means accepting it from people who probably can least afford it. In steps a janitor at Boeing, where Adkison is still working his real job, if you will. A woman he calls Mary. See, Adkison would work his full shift, then stay on late in order to work on projects for Wizards on Boeing's computers, because they were better than anything he had access to at home. The janitor noticed his work ethic, and she knew about the business he was working on because they chatted all the time. They even talked about how he was constantly struggling to raise funds, which all eventually leads to one fateful night when Mary makes a very good decision. As Adkison remembers it, One night, Mary asked me, "Would it be possible for me to invest in your company? I see how hard you work, staying late almost every night. You're usually still here when I leave. I don't know anything about games, but I know your company will be successful." She then wrote a check for $1,400 and left it with him saying, "This is all I can afford. It's my life savings." This should have been a terrible decision. Mary recounted to Atkinson later that her children thought that she was crazy for doing it. And why wouldn't they have? This wasn't Silicon Valley where you can sort of just throw money at something and there's at least a chance that you're going to get rich off it. This was a guy working on a game about dragons and goblins. But lucky for Mary and everyone involved, the game that Atkinson was working on late nights at Boeing was Magic the Gathering. Created by Richard Garfield and a miracle in its own right, Magic was the first ever tabletop trading game, and they somehow got it right on the first try. At Magic's debut at a popular gaming convention called Gen Con, the game stole the show, ringing up pre-sales for what they'd assumed would be a full year supply of cards. Atkinson finally quit working at Boeing after that. The company exploded, and shortly thereafter, they were able to buy the Dungeons & Dragons franchise, and not too long after that, they also bought the Pokemon trading card game. Then Hasbro came knocking. In 1999, Wizards was bought out for $325 million. On a per-share basis, this came out to about $1,400 per share. Assuming she got in at $1 per share, and Atkins wasn't positive, Mary didn't just multiply her investment, she squared it. She was a millionaire at least, potentially a multimillionaire. The drafting table was worth $280,000. The enlightening conversations had been worth $28,000 apiece. Thanks for watching, guys.